Morning, welcome back to the channel. I was going to do a video this week on macro photography, but the conditions have just been terrible. It's been wet, it's been windy, it's been cold, and in fact it's raining again now. So I thought I'd do this video. It's something I've been thinking about shooting for a while anyway, and I'm going to look at the pros and cons of shooting with a prime lens or a zoom lens for action photography. Primarily wildlife photography, but although the conditions for wildlife and sports will be exactly the same. We're looking for fast shutter speeds to freeze fast moving motion most of the time. But as I do wildlife and landscapes on this channel, we'll concentrate on the wildlife side of things. So I shoot with both zoom lenses and prime lenses, and there's pros and cons for both of those. I've missed shots using a zoom lens and I've missed shots using a prime lens. So you could initially think, when you look at a sports event, all those sports professionals, those professional sports photographers have got big prime lenses. So, you could be fooled into thinking that you need a big prime lens to shoot great wildlife pictures. And that's not true. I get some great shots with my 200 to 500, and anyone that's been watching my channel for a while will know I use this a lot. But there are times when a prime lens is better, there are times when a zoom lens is better. So first of all, let's look at the primes. I've got a 600mm prime and I've got a 300mm prime. Now this is an f4 600mm, this is an f2.8 300mm, and these are both fast lenses. And what a fast lens basically means is a lens that opens up to a big maximum aperture. So in this case, the 600mm opens up to f4, which is a wide aperture. The 300mm f2.8 is an even wider aperture. So under the same lighting conditions, the 2.8 maximum aperture will give me a faster shutter speed, wide open, maximum aperture, than the 600mm would. Now, my 200 to 500mm zoom lens is an f5.6 lens, so it opens up to f5.6. So under the same lighting conditions, the 300 prime will give me the fastest shutter speed, the 600 prime the next fastest shutter speed, and the 200 to 500 would be the slowest shutter speed, under the same lighting conditions and the same ISO number. So that's one of the pros of a prime lens. They bring more light in through the lens and it gives you a faster shutter speed, and it means you can shoot with a lower ISO number, so slightly better quality image. The other thing about primes is they've got really fast autofocus and they're very, very sharp. So they're the pros, definitely. Now when it comes to shots that I might miss out or miss on entirely with a prime lens, one of the main things would be the fact that it's got a fixed focal length. There are times when animals have come so close to the camera that I couldn't fit them in. So it meant that that's a shot I couldn't get, a shot that I would have got with a zoom lens. And the other thing with a prime lens, especially the big prime lenses like the 600mm, they've got a very narrow angle of view. So when you're doing birds in flight, it's sometimes hard to pick that bird out because you're hunting around the sky with this very tiny narrow angle of view. So you can sometimes take too long to lock onto the bird and you can miss a picture like that. So they're sort of the minuses, plus the fact they're also very big and bulky. I have to use this on with a tripod and a gimbal head. Now if I use a gimbal head, that means I can pan birds in flight, so it's not a problem. But I tend to find that if you've got a fast moving bird, let's say like a common tern for example, it's easier to get that with a zoom lens that's smaller and lighter. So pros are of the prime lenses, they're very fast, gives you fast shutter speeds, they're very sharp, and they've got very fast autofocus. The cons are you can't obviously change your framing, so if an animal comes too close you're going to miss that shot. And if you're trying to pick a bird out in the sky, it's quite hard sometimes because you've got a very narrow angle of view with the big primes. With a zoom lens, it's the opposite really. So the shutter speeds won't be as quick, which means under the same lighting conditions you'd need to use a higher ISO number to get that shutter speed, so it's a slightly less good quality image. The autofocus isn't generally as quick as a prime lens, but it's still very good. And they are very, very sharp. Never going to be quite as sharp as the prime, but they are very sharp. But the pluses are, it means I've got this multiple framing possibility. So if the animal comes close, I can zoom out, fit it in the frame. And then if I'm doing birds in flight, and I can't pick the bird out quick enough, I can zoom out, acquire that subject and then zoom in again and then track it. So there are times when I get pictures using a zoom lens that I wouldn't get using a prime lens. So it's a, you know, horses for courses type situation. And the other thing is they're much lighter, so it means hand holding. Again, if you're doing fast moving erratic flight patterns, you know, for a certain bird, it makes it easier with a zoom lens. So there's pros and cons with both. Now the other thing is, of course, the big primes are heavy. They're big and they're heavy and they're expensive. So fast prime lenses are generally more expensive than zoom lenses. So again, that's something you need to take into consideration. So to sum up, primes are fast in terms of maximum aperture, fast in terms of autofocus, and they're very sharp. But they're also big and bulky and very expensive. Zoom lenses are not quite as fast in terms of maximum aperture generally, so you need to use a higher ISO number under the same lighting conditions. They're not quite sharp, but they are very sharp, and they're also not quite as quick on the autofocus. But on the plus side, you've got multiple framing options, and they're lighter and easier to handhold. Now, one other thing that I think is really important is the way that a prime lens, a fast prime lens, gives you this lovely blurred out background. Now, if you look at these two shots coming up of nuthatch, they were both taken on the same day. One was on the 600mm f4 and one was on the 200 to 500mm f5.6. Excuse the noise of the plane going over, but it's almost impossible to do any length of video without getting a plane going over here. And now if you look at the first picture on the 600mm f4, you can see that background is so unbelievably soft and blurred, and the animal, the bird, really stands out from the background. Now if you look at the next shot taken on the 200 to 500mm zoom, yes, the background's nice and soft, but it's not anywhere near as soft and silky as the f4. So the f4 maximum aperture gives you that softer background, and that's something else to take into consideration. But can you get great wildlife pictures with the zoom lens? Yes, of course you can. And then the last thing I wanted to talk about really was, if I can find it, I've got one in here. Here we go. Is a converter. Now converters, they magnify the focal length of the lens. So this is a 1.4 converter. You can get ×2 converters. A 1.4 will magnify the focal length of the lens by 1.4 times. A ×2 teleconverter magnifies the focal length by 2 times. So it means we can extend the focal length, but they tend to work better with prime lenses because the 1.4 reduces the amount of light coming into the lens by 1 stop of light. So it turns my f4 lens into an f5.6 lens, and it would turn the f2.8 into an f4. A ×2 stops 2 stops of light, so it's even worse. It would turn the f4 into an f8, and it would turn the f2.8 into an f5.6 lens. So it means I'm going to have to shoot with much higher ISO numbers in order to get the same shutter speed. So I generally use these with prime lenses because you need that fast maximum aperture to maximise your shutter speeds. They also soften the picture slightly, but not much. Now I have used a 1.4 converter with the 200 to 500, the Nikon one actually, and it worked remarkably well actually. But the fact of the matter is, they generally work better with prime lenses than zoom lenses, but they will work with zoom lenses. Yeah, they're worth thinking about, especially if you use prime lenses. So that's about it really. I hope you've enjoyed this video. A little bit different from what I normally do, but I think it's good when you're thinking about buying kit to go in really well informed and really be clear what you want to achieve with your photography and buy the right kit, because you only buy, that way you only buy once, so you don't buy the kit and then have to sell it and buy a different kit because the stuff you have bought isn't doing the job you want it to do. So yeah, hope you've enjoyed this folks, and if you have enjoyed it and you haven't already subscribed to my channel, if you can consider subscribing, that would be great. And also, if you can press the like button, the thumbs up button, that would be great because it always helps my channel. Oh, and last but not least, if you do subscribe, press the little bell notification, and then you'll be informed when my next video is uploaded. So yeah, thanks for watching, hope you've enjoyed it, and I'll speak to you soon on my next video. So bye for now guys.